Billionaires 1, millionaires 0. I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. Congressional Democrats continue trying to resolve their own differences in order to pass two huge spending packages, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan, which enjoys bipartisan support, and the larger Build Back Better plan, now priced at roughly $1.75 trillion. To pass the latter, Democrats need every member of the party in the Senate. But Arizona's Kyrsten Sinema is opposed to conventional tax increases on corporations and has only recently signaled openness to raising taxes for some high earners, according to Bloomberg. And of course, West Virginia's Joe Manchin seemed wary of a proposed billionaires tax, saying, quote, "I don't like the connotation that we're targeting different people. There are only 700 or so Americans in that category." Both holdouts do seem open to a 15% minimum tax on corporations with the highest reported profits. But how will Democrats pay for the rest of what remains in the bills? The framework announced on Thursday, still not finalized, includes a new surtax of 5 percentage points on income above $10 million and an additional 3 percentage points on income above $25 million. That's not going to affect most billionaires whose income tends to be low and whose wealth usually resides mostly in assets. In fact, as Neil Irwin noted in the New York Times this week, the most striking thing about the tax provisions that made it into the framework President Biden announced on Thursday is how they preserve the ability of business owners to accumulate vast fortunes with minimal taxation while extracting more money from the highest paid people those owners employ. It is these working rich, as the investor Clifford Astis has called them, who would pay much of the bill for the expanded social welfare system. The billionaires tax was similar to ideas espoused by my next guest, Senator Elizabeth Warren, during her presidential bid. Supporters at her campaign rallies routinely chanted 2 cents in recognition of her desire to make America's wealthiest families pay 2 cents on every dollar of wealth above $50 million each year.
We can do all of that on 2 cents.
2 cents, 2 cents, 2 cents, 2 cents, 2 cents.
So where is it all headed? No one better to ask than Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, who joins me now. By the way, she's just published a brand new children's book. It's called Pinky Promises. We'll talk about that in a moment. Senator, tax strategies for which you were often criticized by Democratic opponents in the 2020 presidential campaign suddenly gained resonance this week. What changed?
Well, I think part of it is Washington is catching up with where the American people are. And that for a long time, what I've been talking about is very popular across the country. And let me point out, it's actually both halves. I talked about the wealth tax on individuals, the bazillionaires, and a minimum corporate tax based on book profits for the billionaire corporations. You know, the Amazons of the world that report $10 billion in profits and turn around and pay nothing in taxes. So I've been pushing both of these ideas. Looks like for sure one is going to make it into this package. The second one may not make it into this package this time. But you know how I look at this? The American people get it. They understand that the tax system is rigged and they are sick of it. And they are finally pushing Washington to do something. So I'm still fighting to try to get both of them in. But even if we don't, this idea of taxing billionaires on their wealth, it's not going away.
I thought of you when I saw a tweet from Elon Musk. I'll put it up on the screen. He said, quote, "Eventually they run out of other people's money and then they come for you." And I was thinking of that sort of iconic, I think it was 2011 campaign moment. It's Liz Warren getting ready to run for the Senate. You're at a coffee klatch and you say, "You didn't build that." What would be your response to Elon Musk?
You know, come on. Right now, just let's be clear where we stand on taxes. The 99% in America last year paid about 7.2% of their total wealth in taxes. That top 0.1% where Elon Musk lives, they paid about 3.2%. That's less than half as much. If Elon Musk were paying at the same rate as the rest of Americans on their wealth, then Elon Musk and his kind could be funding a huge part of what we need in America. universal child care, universal pre-K, home and community-based care, expanded health care, investments in housing, and a big thwack in fighting back against climate change. The folks at the top, they've been freeloading for long enough.
Well, let's relive the moment to which I referred, a couple of seconds of it, and then I'll ask a follow-up question. Roll it.
Sure.
There is nobody in this country who got rich on his own. Nobody. You built a factory out there, good for you, but I want to be clear. You moved your goods to market on the roads the rest of us paid for. Yep. You hired workers the rest of us paid to educate. You were safe in your factory because of police forces and fire forces that the rest of us paid for. You didn't have to worry that marauding bands would come and seize everything at your factory and hire someone to protect against this because of the work the rest of us did.
By the way, I've always wanted to ask, you look like you're winging it. Are you extemporaneous there?
Totally. I wasn't even a candidate for Senate quite yet. And it was just the question came in and I told him how I felt about it. And it's how I still feel about it, Michael. I mean, Elon Musk, you made $1 bazillion. Good for you. But do keep in mind, the rest of us invested in all the things that were necessary to have a foundation so that you could do that. And no one wants to take it all away.
Let me go back to his point. Here's the fundamental question. Is there any limiting principle in your philosophy? Is there any moral or constitutional constraint against the government taking all private property? Because that's what he's saying. He's saying first they're coming for me and then they're coming for you.
Look, what he is saying is it's okay to tax everybody else, just don't tax me. We've been taxing Americans for more than 100 years, and we've said everybody puts in a portion. I believe taxation ought to be progressive, meaning those at the top ought to be paying not just more in dollars, but actually a little larger share of what they've got. They should be pitching it in so the next generation gets a chance, and the next generation after that, and the next generation after that. That's what hardworking families across this country are doing. That's what teachers and firefighters are doing. That's what everyone else does. And Elon Musk rides on the back of that and pays a much smaller share. That's not right.
Is it possible to tax the assets of the wealthiest among us? I mean, what are you doing with art? What are you doing with someone who owns a patent? What are you doing with someone who owns a copyright? How do you assess annually what has been the gain? And by the way, Senator, look out next year if they lose their tail and now the government has to give money back for a paper loss.
So, look, we have been valued. Let's start with the fact that about 60% of the wealth of those at the top is tied up in marketable securities. So, boy, that one is easy to value. Just look at your stock market quotes and we're done. For a big hunk of the rest of it, it's already valued every year. Real estate? Are you kidding me? We already do that. Art, it's insured. And to be insured, we know what the valuation is, and so on through the assets. Also, it's a very small number of people. So, and it works from year to year. If you had a Rembrandt last year, you ought to either have a Rembrandt this year or at least have an equivalent amount of money or some other art. Look, it's a small number of people. It goes year by year and stays fairly steady. This is something that we can put the IRS on. People specialize in valuation. We can make it happen. And the consequence of this is that we have the money to invest in our children. We have the money to invest in our future. Roads and bridges crumbling around us, people going bankrupt over medical bills, mamas who say, I can't go back to work because I can't find childcare. We make those investments, and once again, we all get richer. If more women and parents, daddies can participate in the workforce, that raises GDP for everyone. I want us to be able to make those investments, and that means Elon Musk has got to pay his part.
Come back to continue that conversation. Tell me quickly, why a children's book, Pinky Promises?
Because when I campaigned, I did about a bazillion pinky promises with little girls. We would talk about all the things that girls do, including running for president. And when I dropped out of the race, I lost. I kept thinking about all those little girls. So I wrote this book for all the little girls I had already done pinky promises for, and all the little girls that this was my future pinky promise to them, and to their brothers, to their uncles, the reminder there's a lot that girls can do.
Senator, thanks so much for being here.
Good to be with you.
What are your thoughts?